Are you keen to improve your finger independence but don't want to spend hours and hours on hand-on exercises, for example? Well, stay tuned for some ideas of how you can use Bach's beautiful C Major Prelude for just this very purpose. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Hi, this is Tommy with Tommy's Piano Corner, the place for returning pianists, or indeed anybody who loves piano, to share tips and ideas of how to get the best from this great hobby. If it's your first trip here, then please do think about subscribing. Simply hit the little icon in the bottom right hand corner of your screen now and it's all done for you. Let me first start with a very quick disclaimer. You know, you'll hear many people argue that finger independence, as it's called in piano playing, is extremely important. Yet you'll also hear many argue that in actual fact, finger independence is a myth because your fingers neither are independent nor do they need to be independent. However, one thing I'm sure that we all do agree on is that being able to play nice and evenly both in a dynamic and a rhythmic sense is extremely important for playing piano well. Now, whether this is achieved by totally independent movement of the fingers or whether it's achieved by a combination of movements of the fingers, the hands, the wrists, the arms, I'm not going to debate too much, and for the purpose of this video I'll call it finger independence because that's pretty much what everybody else calls it. However, my vote, to be honest, is that you do get the best results by using your entire playing apparatus, as the modern words seem to say, rather than trying to focus on just moving your fingers independently. Whatever I'm trying to achieve at the piano, I always prefer to do it by using actual music rather than technical dry exercises. To be honest, I think that my neighbours are probably already tolerant enough with my piano practice without me subjecting them to hours of unmusical exercise type playing. So if I'm trying to work on evenness, I would prefer to use something like a Bach Prelude, which is just beautiful in its own right. Bach's C Major Prelude is perhaps one of his most well-known pieces of music. I mean, it's well-known both independently as a piano piece, but it's also been used as a backdrop for other pieces of music over the years, even popular music. And even better, it's not that difficult to play, even for a relative beginner. When we look at it closely, it shares quite a lot in common with some hand-on exercises, for example, in that it's a repeating pattern that's played with the fingers without needing to move the hand around the piano too much at all. And that, I guess, is why I think it's such a good candidate to be used to develop some of, let's call it, more mechanical type evenness in our playing, nice level dynamics and nice even distribution of notes. In addition, and this is another reason I prefer it to a hand-on exercise, is that it helps us to also acquire coordination between the hands, because of course our hands are very rarely doing exactly the same thing at any one point in time when we play piano. And of course, to practice it, there are probably almost unlimited ways that we can do it. We could, for example, practice it using a legato touch. And then trying it with a staccato touch. We could play it using various rhythms. We could play it pianissimo or piano. We could, in fact, play a mezzo piano. And all of these things we can keep doing and still enjoy the background beauty of all of the chord changes and the harmony changes that Bach's put there for us. For those people who like to practice with a metronome, then this piece is a good candidate. You could use a metronome to practice it either slowly or indeed, if you wanted to practice it at quite fast tempos. However, as we all know, music is very rarely intended to be played in a mechanical manner. If you were to listen, for example, to Andras Schiff's version of the C Major Prelude, you'll see that yes, it has a steady pulse, but it's far from being metronomic. Equally, the dynamics are quite reserved, but nonetheless he does change dynamic where it's sort of suggested by the chords. You can also listen to Lang Lang's version of this from his piano book album, and as you might expect, he takes a lot more liberties both with the tempo and with the dynamics in this piece. Now, the reason I bring this up specifically is because, of course, it's far more difficult to control rhythmic evenness when we're changing the dynamics. If we simply play something such as an exercise at a single dynamic all the way through, that's in reality not too difficult to control. However, once you start adding the dynamics in, it gets more awkward. One of my favourite quotes from Vladimir Horowitz when he was talking about wrong notes was that if people wanted him to play without specific dynamics, then he'd never play anything wrong. And clearly for we hobbyists, we shouldn't be worried that as we start to add dynamics, it starts to make things more difficult for us. And I believe that this is why we need to practice evenness within the context of a piece of music that has dynamics and has tempo changes, so that we're in a realistic situation when we're practicing. I mean, I've played this prelude for pretty much as long as I can remember, and even to this day, when I'm experimenting with different dynamics, I find that I get the odd bit of rhythmic unevenness and some ghost notes here and there, and that's why I think it's such valuable practice to do it in this way. Therefore, as a next step towards finger independence, as it were, I think it's good to practice pieces like this with dynamics, but still predominantly focusing on the evenness side of things as we play. Now, I'm sure that some people will raise an eyebrow at the suggestion of doing this with Bach's music, and if that's the way you feel about it, then I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. But maybe what you could consider doing, for example, is take the version of it that forms part of Gounod's Ave Maria. Now, this way, you've got an authentic piece of music that a composer has added specific dynamics into, and this will allow you to use the same notes effectively, but start to play them in a completely different way, with dynamic and tempo changes, and maybe even the way you use the pedal you would want to do differently here. The reason this is such a good idea to do, I think, is that think about it logically. As we play piano, what makes a difference in the dynamic of a note we play? It's how hard we hit the key, how high from above the key our finger falls to do it, and the speed with which our fingers fall on the keys. Now, if you're trying to be rhythmically very even and change dynamics at the same time, that's not easy to do, and that will be a really good way to train this famous finger independence. Adding rubato, in my opinion, is the same. If it's to be done well, then we still need to maintain a good degree of evenness. We can't speed up too quickly or slow down too quickly, otherwise it just sounds odd. To add a little bit of extra interest if you're playing along with the Gounod version, then I've linked an MP3 file below for you that you can download for free. Basically, I recorded the violin part through my computer with some extra string parts, and you can actually play along with the piano version of the prelude to the recording. It has the dynamic changes and, of course, the tempo changes, so good training. Another interesting thing, of course, to do is take a copy of your score and then listen carefully to a recording by one of your favourite pianists and see just how they change it. Just see the dynamics that they use, see the tempo changes that they use, mark these into the score and see if you're able to play evenly with these changes. And my view is that if you can, you're already a good way down the journey towards finger independence. As a bonus, why not also use this as part of your exercises for recognizing chords? Do perhaps a full harmonic analysis from beginning to end of this lovely piece and look at this tremendous chords that Bach uses here. So if you're not already, then please do subscribe to Tommy's Piano Corner. Don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you're notified of new videos as and when they're released. I thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon.